Okay, Pope Francis is visiting New York City for the very first time today, praying for those that we lost in the 9/11 attack following a speech to the United Nations earlier this morning. The Pope called for world leaders to protect the environment and from the, quote, culture of waste created by greed. But our next guests are taking issue with some of the Pope's comments. Joining me right now, Zuhdi Jasser, president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, and economist Stephen Moore of the Heritage Foundation. Stephen, I'll start with you. Climate change, is this a moral issue?
Well, it's certainly not one of the top moral issues of our time. I mean, the moral issues of our time have to do with abortion and issues like, how do we lift up every boat so that we don't have people who are poor and in poverty. And I think the only point I would make about this is, the best way to help poor people, it's just a fact that the best way to lift up people who are in poverty is through free market capitalism. Wow. And I have to say, I was worried about what he was going to say. Making sure that everybody has an opportunity, and you want to make sure that worldwide people do have opportunity. And what poor people around the world need most is access to electricity, and that's why I think some of this green agenda runs counter to what he's saying about how to help people at the very bottom of the scale.
I guess what's interesting to me is that it's his first trip here. He was there speaking on Capitol Hill, which, Zuhdi, struck me as a pretty political move. Now, let me preface this by saying I was raised Irish Catholic. My kids go to Catholic school. I mean, the Pope is a big deal. I mean, all my kids could talk about last night was Pope Francis, and it's a very big deal to have him here in New York City, and millions and millions and millions across the globe really respect and honor him, and I'm included in that. However, I would question the politicization, if you would, of religion right now. Do you find anything odd with speaking there before lawmakers, as opposed to, say, just at St. Pat's Cathedral around the corner?
Yeah, Trish, you look at the time in history that we're in right now. This is a pope whose legacy could be. Now, as he's come to the leader of the free world, you see the most influential politician in the world being President Obama, and the most influential religious leader of 1.2 billion Catholics who could together set the world straight in a better direction for their legacy. Are they going to direct to the Muslim world of over 1 billion adherents a marching order to say, you know what, the House of Islam is torn in a millennial cosmic battle between Sunni and Shia Islamism?
Okay, you're talking about something
fascism.
different, and I want to get to that, but just humor me and tell me, what was your impression of him speaking on Capitol Hill? Did that make this message that much more political, Zuhdi?
Oh, it did. I mean, listen, for someone who's fighting for the separation of mosque and state, I want to see him give religious, spiritual, moral leadership, not political leadership, not get into the weeds of political agendas. And unfortunately, that's what I saw him doing, and not really giving the moral leadership that our time needs today.
Mm-hmm. And
Trish,
Steve,
I
know you come at it from an economist viewpoint. Go ahead.
Yeah. This is important. You ask, is this Pope being too political? And I don't always agree with this Pope says. I'm Catholic as well. I think he's an amazingly charismatic Pope. I think he's probably the most, I said on Fox yesterday, he's the most popular person in America in the world. And somebody said, no, that's Taylor Swift. But he's right up there, right? And the fact is, though, if you go back to my real hero of the last 50 years, which is Pope John Paul II, I mean, he was extremely political. We now know from the opening up the documents that he worked with Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan to bring down the Berlin Wall. So I don't think that's anything inappropriate about this Pope talking about the issues of our day. I just wish he would deal with issues like, terrorism and how to lift the poor rather than global warming.
You got some other concerns on issues. And back to those issues, Zuhdi, I know that you would like to see a Pope that's doing more for what when it comes to extreme Islam, to calling it out, and what was your thought on that?
Really setting the tone as far as where we are in this time of history. And Pope Benedict laid it out and said, is Islam going to come out and come to terms with reason and modernity? He asked that question long before ISIS, long before the Arab awakening. Now we have that window of opportunity, and the leaders of the free world and the leader of Catholicism who can set us straight and say, Islam is a beautiful religion. Is it going to come to terms and defeat these symptoms, be it ISIS, be it Assad, be it all the evil that's coming out in this cosmic battle? Are we going to stand by the prisoners of conscience and stand by Christian persecution and try to stop it and combat it and treat it as a symptom of political Islam? And he hasn't stepped up to that. If anything, it's just amazing how it's been completely ignored, as if it's this huge elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about.
Well, it's all very interesting to watch. Gosh, I mean, Steve, imagine what it must take to get to be Pope. Because, you know, you're an economist, you're a business guy. There's no way to evaluate just exactly how well your church is doing, right?
Yeah.
But you got to rise up
right.
through the ranks. I'm always amazed by that. Anyway, Zudi, Steve, thank you so much, guys. Good to see you. New York City is on very high alert right now with Pope Francis in town. We've got an inside